The warning lights flashed red across the command center of Valorian Border Station 12. Sensor Officer Dren stared at his display screen with confusion written across his scaled face. A single ship had crossed into Imperial space, moving at steady speed toward the heart of the Valorian Empire. Commander Thex, we have an unauthorized vessel entering Sector 7, Dren called out, his voice tight with concern. Commander Thex moved to the sensor station, his massive frame towering over the seated officer. He looked at the readings and felt his blood run cold. The ship's signature was unmistakable. Human design, but that was impossible. Humanity had sealed their borders 30 years ago and never returned. Hail them, Thex ordered. Demand identification and purpose. The communications officer tried multiple frequencies. Nothing. The human ship continued forward, ignoring every attempt at contact. It moved with purpose as if it knew exactly where it was going. Send the readings to Fleet Admiral Kessex immediately, Thex said. This is above our authority. 2 hours later, aboard the massive orbital fortress called Empire's Fist, Fleet Admiral Kessex reviewed the same sensor data. He was an old warrior, with scars from a dozen campaigns marking his thick hide. He had commanded fleets that conquered entire star systems. One small ship did not concern him. They must be lost, said Captain Vornis, his second in command. Or perhaps it is a navigation error. Humans were never strong warriors. Kessex nodded slowly. Send 3 battlecruisers to intercept. The Ravager, the Fist of Glory, and the Thunderhead. Have them destroy this ship if it does not turn back. We cannot show weakness at our borders. The 3 Valorian battlecruisers were impressive vessels. Each one measured over 2 kilometers in length and carried enough firepower to level a small moon. Their crews were veterans confident in their superiority. When they surrounded the human ship 3 days later, they expected quick surrender. Captain Vorl of the Ravager studied the human vessel through his view screen. It was sleek and dark with strange angles that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The ship was perhaps half the size of his battlecruiser, but something about it made him uncomfortable. Human vessel, you have violated Imperial space, Vorl transmitted. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction. Silence. They mock us with their silence, growled Vorl. All ships' weapons range. Target their engines. Fire on my command. The 3 battlecruisers moved into position, forming a triangle around the human ship. Their massive plasma cannons charged with crackling energy. The human vessel did not raise shields. It did not take evasive action. It simply continued on its course as if the Valorian warships did not exist. Fire, Vorl commanded. Brilliant beams of superheated plasma lanced across space from all 3 ships. The weapons struck the human vessel dead center. Vorl expected to see hull breaches, atmosphere venting, perhaps an explosion. Instead, the plasma simply disappeared against the dark hull. No damage. No effect whatsoever. Impossible, breathed Vorl. What kind of armor? The human ship moved. It did not turn dramatically or accelerate hard. It simply adjusted position slightly, bringing what appeared to be 3 small weapons to bear. They were tiny compared to the massive Valorian plasma cannons, almost insignificant. 3 points of white light appeared. That was all. Just 3 small flashes. The Thunderhead exploded first. Its reactor core breached, sending a shockwave that scattered debris for hundreds of kilometers. The Fist of Glory lasted 2 seconds longer before something punched through its command deck and out the other side, detonating every power system simultaneously. The Ravager's shields held for almost 5 seconds before collapsing. Vorl had just enough time to scream before his ship tore itself apart. The human vessel continued forward without slowing. Behind it, 3 expanding clouds of wreckage marked what had been the pride of the Valorian border fleet. When news reached Fleet Admiral Kessex, he refused to believe it at first. 3 battlecruisers destroyed in seconds, by 1 small ship. The sensor recordings had to be wrong, but deep scans confirmed the truth. The wreckage was real. The human ship was real, and it was still coming. Kessex called an emergency meeting of his senior staff. 20 officers crowded into the strategic command room, all talking at once. Fear was spreading through the fleet faster than official reports. "We need to understand what we are facing," said Intelligence Officer Merricks, a thin female with sharp eyes. "I have been searching the archives for information about human military capability. Most files from 30 years ago have been classified or deleted. But what I found is disturbing." She activated a holographic display. Images of old human ships appeared, smaller and less advanced than current Valorian vessels. This is what we knew about humanity 3 decades ago. They were peaceful traders, explorers. They had small defensive fleets. Then suddenly they closed their borders and all contact ceased. Why would they do that? Asked Captain Vornis. I do not know. The records are incomplete. But I found one report fragment that mentioned something called adaptive warfare. Humans apparently have a cultural trait where they learn from every defeat and return stronger. Much stronger. Keswick felt a chill run down his spine. You think they spent 30 years preparing? But for what? No one had an answer. The human ship continued deeper into Imperial space. It passed through the Torrens Nebula, a region filled with automated defense platforms. 20 weapons platforms opened fire simultaneously, using overlapping fields of fire that no ship should survive. The human vessel accelerated through the barrage. Missiles exploded harmlessly against its hull. Energy beams scattered off some kind of field that bent space itself. In response, the ship released what looked like small drones. The drones moved faster than anything the Valorians had ever seen. They struck each defense platform with precision, and strange purple energy rippled outward from each impact. The platforms did not explode. They simply stopped existing, as if they had been erased from reality itself. Commander Thex watched the recordings from Border Station 12. His hand shook slightly. What kind of weapons are those? We do not know, replied Marix, who had joined him to study the data. Our scientists have never seen technology that manipulates reality like that. It is beyond our understanding. How long until it reaches the core worlds? At current speed, 72 hours. And Admiral Keswick is assembling the Grand Fleet to stop it. Thex looked at the small, dark ship on his screen. It moved through space like a knife through water, unstoppable and inevitable. Somewhere deep in his warrior's heart, he knew the truth that none of his superiors wanted to admit. This was not an invasion. This was not a scouting mission. This single ship was a message. And the Valorian Empire was about to learn what happens when you forget about humanity. The human vessel continued forward, silent and terrible, leaving nothing but wreckage and fear in its wake. Across the Empire, civilians began hearing whispers of the unstoppable human ship. Some called it a ghost. Others called it vengeance. But everyone agreed on one thing. The Empire had awakened something that should have remained sleeping. And now it was coming for them all. Fleet Admiral Keswick stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Emperor's Wrath, and felt something he had not experienced in 40 years of military service. Doubt. Around him, his command staff worked with nervous energy, coordinating the largest fleet assembly in recent Imperial history. 20 warships had gathered in the Torrens Nebula system. 5 dreadnoughts, each carrying enough firepower to conquer a planet. 10 heavy cruisers with advanced targeting systems. 5 support vessels with electronic warfare capabilities. It was a force that had never known defeat. Yet the crews whispered among themselves, sharing stories of the 3 battle cruisers that had died in seconds. Admiral, all ships report ready, Captain Vornis announced. His voice was steady, but Keswick noticed how his second-in-command's hands gripped the rail in front of him. Good. Deploy the fleet in a sphere formation. I want overlapping fire coverage from every angle. When that human ship arrives, it will face attacks from all directions simultaneously. Nothing can survive that. The fleet moved into position. Sensors tracked the approaching human vessel, still moving at the same steady pace. It had not slowed. It had not altered course. It simply came forward like a machine that knew no fear. Tactical analysis? Keswick demanded. The tactical officer, a young male named Drax, looked up from his console. Admiral, the ship's weapons are unknown design. Our best estimate is that they use some form of directed gravitational manipulation. The reality warping effect we observed at the defense platforms suggests technology far beyond our current understanding. Every technology has a weakness, Keswick said firmly. We simply need to find it. Intelligence Officer Marix approached the Admiral carrying a data pad. Sir, I have been reviewing the old archives as you ordered. I found something disturbing. Show me. Marix activated the pad. Holographic text appeared, heavily redacted with black bars covering most of the information. These are reports from 30 years ago, just before humanity closed their borders. There was an incident involving a species called the Krell Dominion. They attacked a human colony world, 24 million civilians died, Keswick frowned. I remember hearing about that. The Krell were destroyed shortly after, weren't they? Completely. Every Krell world, station, and ship was eliminated within 6 months. But here is what concerns me. After that campaign, humanity simply vanished from galactic politics. All their trade routes closed. All diplomatic channels went silent. They sealed their borders and no one has heard from them since. Until now, Vornis said quietly. Until now, Merrick's agreed. Admiral, I think they have been preparing for something. Building something. And this ship might just be the beginning. Before Keswick could respond, the sensor alarm blared across the bridge. The human ship had entered the system. Battle stations, Keswick commanded. All ships' power weapons. Prepare to fire on my mark. The human vessel appeared on the view screen, still dark and sleek, moving through space with unnatural grace. It headed directly toward the center of the Valorian formation, showing no concern for the 20 warships surrounding it. They are either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish, Vornis muttered. Or incredibly advanced, Merrick added softly. The human ship reached weapons range. Keswick raised his hand, ready to give the command that would unleash devastating firepower from every direction. But before he could speak, the human ship acted first. It split apart. No, not split. It was deploying something. Dozens of small objects detached from the hull, spreading out in all directions. They moved impossibly fast, accelerating at speeds that should have turned any crew inside into paste. Drones, shouted Drax. Hundreds of them! Ignore the drones. Focus all fire on the main ship, fire! The Valorian fleet opened fire. Energy beams, missiles, plasma torpedoes, and kinetic rounds all converged on the human vessel from 20 different angles. The space around it lit up like a small sun. Explosions cascaded across its hull. For a moment, Keswick thought they had succeeded. Then the light faded and the human ship remained. Not damaged, not even scratched. It was as if the fleet had been firing at empty space. Impossible, Vornis gasped. The drones reached the Valorian ships. They did not fire weapons. They did not need to. Each drone simply touched a warship's hull and released that same purple energy that had destroyed the defense platforms. The heavy cruiser Vengeance shuddered, then began to fold in on itself. Metal twisted and compressed as space itself seemed to collapse around the ship. Within seconds, the entire 2-kilometer vessel had been reduced to a sphere of crushed metal, no larger than a ground transport vehicle. Evasive maneuvers, Keswick screamed. All ships scatter. But the drones were faster. They moved with impossible precision, each one targeting a specific ship. The cruiser Dominator tried to jump to faster than light speed, but a drone caught it mid-jump. The ship stretched like rubber, then snapped, leaving 2 separate pieces tumbling through space. The dreadnought Titan's fall had better luck. Its captain activated experimental shield harmonics that actually pushed back 2 drones. But the human ship itself moved then, its main weapons coming to bear. 3 white points of light appeared. The Titan's fall lasted longer than the battlecruisers had, almost 15 seconds, before its reinforced hull simply gave up and the ship tore apart from the inside. Keswick watched his fleet die. Ship after ship fell to the drones or to the human vessel's precise, devastating weapons. His tactical officers shouted reports that made no sense. The drones were predicting movement before it happened. The human ship was firing at points in space where ships would be, not where they were. It was as if they could see the future. Full retreat, Keswick finally ordered, his pride crushed beneath the weight of reality. All remaining ships jump to hyperspace immediately. The Emperor's Wrath and 2 escort cruisers managed to escape. 17 other ships did not. As Keswick's flagship jumped away, he looked back at the battle zone. The human ship had already resumed its original course, moving deeper into Imperial space. It had not pursued. It did not need to. The journey back to Imperial headquarters took 8 hours. Keswick spent that time reviewing battle recordings, trying to understand what had happened. Every tactical principle he had learned over 4 decades meant nothing against this enemy. They were not just more advanced. They were fighting a completely different kind of war. When the Emperor's Wrath finally docked at Empire's Fist, Keswick found a priority message waiting for him. The Imperial High Council demanded his immediate presence. He cleaned his uniform, straightened his medals, and tried to prepare for the difficult conversation ahead. But how could he explain to the Council that the Empire's greatest fleet had been destroyed by a single ship? How could he make them understand that this was not about military tactics or superior numbers? The humans had demonstrated something far more terrifying than powerful weapons. They had shown patience. They had spent 30 years preparing. They had built technology that treated the Empire's best warships like training targets. And they had done it all in silence, without warning, without mercy. As Kessex walked through the corridors toward the council chambers, he heard the whispers of other officers and staff members. Word of the defeat had already spread. Fear was replacing confidence throughout the military command structure. One young officer, barely old enough to have earned his uniform, stopped Kessex in the hallway. "Admiral, is it true? About the human ship?" Kessex looked at the young officer's hopeful face, wanting to reassure him, wanting to say that everything would be fine. But he had seen too much to lie. "Yes," Kessex said quietly, "it is true, and it is still coming." The young officer's face went pale. Kessex continued walking, leaving the officer standing alone in the corridor. Ahead, the council chambers waited. Behind, across the vastness of space, a dark human ship continued its silent advance toward the heart of the Empire. And somewhere aboard that ship, someone had decided that the Valorian Empire needed to answer for something. Kessex did not know what, but he was beginning to fear that he would find out very soon. The Imperial High Council chamber was a massive room designed to inspire fear and respect. Tall columns of dark stone reached toward a domed ceiling, painted with scenes of Valorian victories. At the center sat Empress Talindra on her throne, carved from a single piece of crystal that had taken 100 years to shape. Around her, 12 council members occupied their seats, each representing a different sector of the Empire. Today, the magnificent room felt like a tomb. Fleet Admiral Kessex stood before them, his uniform still showing scorch marks from the battle. He had delivered his report in a clear, steady voice, but his words had brought only silence. The council members stared at him with expressions ranging from disbelief to barely controlled panic. 17 ships, Councillor Drexus finally said, his voice hollow. "Our finest vessels. Destroyed in less than 20 minutes. "Yes, Councillor," Kessex confirmed. "By one ship." "Yes, Councillor." Empress Talindra leaned forward on her throne. She was a tall woman with silver scales that marked her ancient bloodline. She had ruled the Empire for 40 years and had never shown weakness. But now Kessex saw something new in her eyes. Fear. "Admiral, in your professional opinion, can we stop this vessel?" she asked. Kessex wanted to say yes. He wanted to assure his Empress that the Empire's military could handle any threat. But he had seen what the human ship could do. He had watched it tear through his fleet like it was made of paper. "I do not know, Your Majesty. The technology they possess is beyond our understanding. Their weapons ignore our shields. Their drones move faster than our targeting systems can track, and they seem to predict our actions before we make them." "That is impossible," snapped Councillor Vexus, the Minister of War. "No species can predict the future." "Then you explain how they fired at empty space and my ships jumped directly into their weapons fire," Kessex shot back, his composure cracking. "You explain how their drones reached my vessels before my sensors detected them moving. I do not care if you call it prediction or magic or divine intervention. The result is the same. We cannot fight them." The council erupted into argument. Voices rose, accusations flew. Some blamed Kessex for poor tactics. Others demanded more ships be sent. A few suggested abandoning the border worlds and concentrating all defenses around the capital. The chamber descended into chaos. "Enough!" Empress Talindra's voice cut through the noise like a blade. The council fell silent. "Fighting among ourselves accomplishes nothing. We need information. We need to understand why this is happening." A small voice spoke from the back of the chamber. "Your Majesty, if I may." Everyone turned. A young Valorian male stood nervously at the entrance. He wore the simple uniform of a junior intelligence analyst. Kessex recognized him as Vecris, one of Merrix's research team. "You dare interrupt the High Council?" Councillor Drexus demanded. "Let him speak," Talindra said. "At this point I will listen to anyone who might have answers." Vecris walked forward, clutching a data pad. His hands shook slightly. "Your Majesty, I have been researching human history as Intelligence Officer Merrix ordered. I believe I have found something important." He activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the council table. 30 years ago, humanity was attacked by the Krell Dominion. A colony world called New Terra was destroyed. 24 million humans died. We know this already, Vexus said impatiently. Yes, sir, but what we did not know is how the Krell found that colony. New Terra was in deep space, far from any major trade routes. The Krell had no reason to be in that region, yet they appeared with a full invasion fleet and attacked without warning. Vecris touched the datapad, and more information appeared. The Krell were completely destroyed 6 months later. Every world, every ship, every station. Humanity erased them from existence. Then humanity closed their borders and went silent. What is your point? Talindra asked, though Kessex thought he saw understanding dawning in her eyes. Your Majesty, the Krell could not have found New Terra on their own. Someone had to give them the location. Someone sold humanity's colony coordinates to their enemies. The chamber went deathly quiet. That is a serious accusation, Counselor Drexus said carefully. Do you have proof? Vecris hesitated. Not exactly, sir. Most records from that time period have been classified at the highest levels. I do not have clearance to access them. But the pattern is clear. The Krell attacked. Humanity responded by eliminating the Krell. Then humanity went silent for 30 years building something, and now one of their ships has crossed our border. Not to explore. Not to trade. It is coming here with purpose. You think they blame us for the Krell attack? Talindra asked quietly. I think someone in the Empire sold intelligence to the Krell, Your Majesty, and I think humanity spent 3 decades making sure they could hold the guilty party accountable. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Kessex noticed that Counselor Drexus had gone very still, his face expressionless. This is speculation, Vexus protested. We cannot make decisions based on— We can check, Talindra interrupted. Counselor Drexus, you were Minister of Intelligence 30 years ago. Access the classified files. Find out if this young analyst's theory is correct. Drexus stood slowly. Your Majesty, those files are sealed for reasons of imperial security. Opening them could— Counselor, one human ship has destroyed 20 of our finest vessels. It is currently heading toward our capital world. Imperial security is already compromised. Open the files now. Drexus looked around the chamber, perhaps searching for support. Finding none, he nodded stiffly. As you command, Your Majesty. He left the chamber. The remaining council members sat in tense silence. Kessex found himself thinking about the human ship, still moving through space toward them. Why send only one vessel? Humanity clearly had the technology to destroy the entire empire. So why this slow, methodical approach? Because they want us to be afraid, Kessex realized. They want us to feel what their colonists felt. The helplessness. The inevitability. They want us to know death is coming and there is nothing we can do to stop it. 20 minutes later, Drexus returned. His face had gone gray. He carried a datapad that he placed on the council table with trembling hands. The analyst was correct, Drexus said, his voice barely above a whisper. 31 years ago, the previous administration authorized the sale of classified information to the Krell Dominion, specifically coordinates for human colony worlds, including New Terra. The transaction earned the Empire 3 billion credits and access to Krell mining technology. Who authorized this? Talindra demanded. High Counselor Threxus, Your Majesty. He died 15 years ago. But the deal was approved by several ministers, including— Drexus paused, looking at the other council members, including Counselor Vexus, who was Minister of Trade at the time. All eyes turned to Vexus. The elderly Valorian stood, his face defiant. It was good business. The humans were expanding too quickly. Taking resources that should have belonged to us, weakening them benefited the Empire. You sold coordinates that led to the death of 24 million innocent civilians, Talindra said, her voice cold. Innocent? They were colonizers taking worlds that did not belong to them. They were children, farmers, teachers, artists, families. Talindra stood from her throne. And you sold their lives for profit. I did what was best for the Empire. Vexus shouted, No, said a new voice. Everyone jumped. On the main view screen, an image had appeared without anyone activating it. The human ship had broadcast directly into the council chamber. A human female appeared on the screen. She looked tired, her dark skin marked with lines of age and stress. Her uniform was simple and bore no insignia of rank that Kessex recognized, but her eyes held a weight that made even Empress Talindra step back. My name is Captain Sarah Chen, the human said. I command the UHSN Indomitable, and I am here to deliver a message. We wish to negotiate, Talindra began. No negotiation, Chen interrupted. 30 years ago, your empire sold information to the Krell Dominion. That information led to the attack on New Terra. My husband died in that attack. My 2 children died in that attack. 24 million of my people died because your government wanted mining technology. Captain Chen, please understand. We eliminated the Krell, Chen continued, her voice steady and cold. Every last one of them. It took 6 months. Then we went home, and we asked ourselves a question. How do we make sure this never happens again? How do we make sure that no one ever thinks humanity is weak enough to betray? On the screen, Chen's expression did not change. We spent 30 years answering that question. The Indomitable is the first answer. There are 19 more ships like it, and we have decided to deliver a message to every government that thinks human lives are acceptable currency. What message? Kesix heard himself ask. That actions have consequences. That betrayal will be answered. That humanity remembers. Chen looked directly at the camera. 1 of our ships for each of your core worlds. We arrive in 3 days. Prepare however you wish. The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted in panic. Council members shouted, some calling for surrender, others for mobilizing every ship in the Empire. Vexus tried to leave, but guards blocked his exit. Empress Talindra stood frozen, staring at the empty view screen. Kesix thought about Chen's tired eyes, about the 19 other ships waiting somewhere in the imperial capital world of Valoria Prime, descended into chaos within hours of Captain Chen's transmission. News of the human threat spread faster than any official statement could control. Citizens who had lived their entire lives under the protection of the Empire's military suddenly faced the reality that their government could not protect them. Spaceports overflowed with civilians desperate to flee. Riots broke out in the lower districts. Some blamed the council, others blamed the military. Many simply panicked, unsure what to do when facing an enemy that could not be defeated. In the council chamber, Empress Talindra had ordered an emergency session. This time, armed guards surrounded the room. Councillor Vexus sat in restraints, his defiant expression replaced by fear. Several other council members had been detained after Vecris uncovered their involvement in the Krell deal. How many knew? Talindra demanded, pacing in front of her throne. How many of you sold humanity's children for profit and said nothing? Intelligence Officer Merrick stood at the main console, displaying document after document on the holographic screen. 7 current council members approved or knew about the transaction, Your Majesty. Another 12 high-ranking military and civilian officials had knowledge. All have been identified. Arrest them all, Talindra ordered. Bring them here. I want them to face what they have done. Kesix watched his empress with growing respect. She had not been part of the previous administration. She had inherited this crime without knowing it existed. Yet she was taking responsibility, making hard decisions while her government crumbled around her. Your Majesty, Councillor Drexus said carefully, perhaps we should focus on defense rather than blame. The human ship will arrive in less than 3 days. Defense? Talindra laughed bitterly. Admiral Kesix destroyed my illusions of military superiority. We cannot fight this threat. So what do you suggest, Drexus? Should we beg? Should we offer reparations? Tell me, what is the appropriate payment for 24 million lives? Drexus had no answer. Young analyst Vecris approached the Empress hesitantly. Your Majesty, if I may speak. At this point, Vecris, you have earned the right to speak whenever you wish. Thank you, Your Majesty. I have been studying humanity's history, their culture. They value something they call justice. Not revenge. Justice. There is a difference. Explain, Talindra said, stopping her pacing. Revenge is about causing pain. Justice is about balance, about making things right. The humans spent 30 years building their fleet, yes, but they only sent 1 ship. If they wanted pure destruction, all 20 vessels would have arrived at once. Instead, Captain Chen gave us 3 days. She wants something from us. What? Kesix asked. What could we possibly give them that they could not simply take? Accountability, Vecris said simply. They want us to face what we did, to acknowledge it, to make it right somehow. You cannot make murder right, Drexus muttered. No, Vecris agreed, but you can ensure it never happens again. You can change. Talindra stood very still, thinking. Finally, she turned to Kesix. Admiral, what is your honest assessment? If I tried to reach the Indomitable, could I get close enough to speak with Captain Chen? Your Majesty, that is suicide. You saw what happened to my fleet. That is not what I asked. Could I reach the ship? Kessex considered. The Indomitable has not fired on unarmed vessels. It destroys military targets but ignores civilian ships. If you approached in a small shuttle, broadcasting peaceful intent, possibly, then that is what I will do. The council erupted in protests. Even Kessex felt compelled to object. Your Majesty, you cannot— I can and I will. Talindra interrupted, her voice hard. My predecessor's government committed this crime. I inherited the empire built on that crime. If someone must face humanity's judgment, it should be me. Let me go instead, Kessex offered. I am expendable. You are the Empire. No, Admiral. The Empire is 20 billion citizens on 50 worlds. The Empire is children who had no part in this crime. I am just one person wearing a crown. And right now wearing this crown means taking responsibility. She turned to her personal guard. Prepare my shuttle. I leave within the hour. Your Majesty, Bekris said quietly, if I may suggest, take the records with you. All of them. Show Captain Chen that you are not hiding anything. Show her that you want the truth to be known. Talindra nodded. Good thinking. Merrick's compile everything related to the Krell transaction. Every name, every transaction, every communication. I want complete transparency. As Merrick's worked, Kessex approached the Empress. Your Majesty, what will you say to them? Talindra smiled sadly. I will tell them the truth. That my government betrayed them. That I am sorry. That I want justice, not war. And then I will accept whatever judgment they deliver. They may kill you. Then I will die knowing I did the right thing. Better that than living as the ruler of an empire built on cowardice and greed. 2 hours later, Empress Talindra's personal shuttle detached from the royal station. The small craft was unarmed, unshielded, and transmitted her identity on all frequencies. She piloted it herself, having dismissed her guards and advisors. Only she would face what came next. The Indomitable had entered the Valorian home system 4 hours ahead of schedule. It had destroyed 3 more automated defense platforms without slowing. Now it held position just beyond the orbital range of Valoria Prime's largest moon, a dark shape against the stars. Talindra broadcast as she approached. Captain Chen, this is Empress Talindra of the Valorian Empire. I come unarmed and alone. I request permission to speak with you. I have information about the Krell transaction. I want to discuss terms. Silence. The shuttle continued forward. Talindra's hands were steady on the controls, but her heart pounded. This close, she could see the Indomitable clearly. It was beautiful in a terrible way, all smooth curves and dark metal that seemed to drink in starlight. Strange energy flickered across its surface like lightning trapped under glass. Just as she thought she would crash into the hull, a section of the ship opened. A tractor beam caught her shuttle gently, pulling it inside. The opening sealed behind her and lights activated in what appeared to be a landing bay. Talindra stepped out of her shuttle. The air was breathable, slightly warmer than Valorian standard. She walked across the bay, her footsteps echoing. At the far end, a door opened. Captain Sarah Chen stood waiting. She was smaller than Talindra had expected, barely reaching the Empress's shoulder. Her dark uniform was simple and worn, but her eyes held depths of sadness that made Talindra want to look away. You came alone, Chen said. That was brave. Or foolish. Perhaps both, Talindra admitted. Captain Chen, Follow me, Chen interrupted. There are things you need to see. She led Talindra through corridors that hummed with power. The walls seemed to pulse with energy. Occasionally, Talindra glimpsed other humans all wearing the same simple uniforms. They watched her pass with expressions that ranged from curiosity to cold hatred. They reached a large room that appeared to be the ship's bridge. Holographic displays covered every surface, showing star maps, tactical readouts, and data streams that Talindra could not begin to understand. This is the Indomitable, Chen said. One of 20 vessels humanity built over the last 3 decades. Do you know what we call this class of ship? Talindra shook her head. Reckoning class. Because that is what they are for. Bringing reckoning to those who harm humanity. Chen touched a control and one of the large displays changed. It showed a pastoral scene. Green fields, blue sky, children playing. This was New Terra, my home. My husband taught literature at the university. My daughter wanted to be a doctor. My son loved music. They were good people living peaceful lives. The image changed. Now it showed fire, destruction, bodies. The Krell arrived without warning. Their ships bombarded the planet for 6 hours. Then they landed troops and killed anyone who survived. My family was in the capital city. They had no chance. Talindra felt tears forming. Captain, I am so sorry. I did not know. No one knew. That was the point. Chen turned to face her. But we found out. It took time, but we traced the Krell's movements, found their communications, cracked their codes. And we learned that they should never have known New Terra existed. Someone told them. Someone from your empire. I brought the records, Talindra said, holding out a data pad. Everything about the transaction. Names, dates, payments. 7 current council members were involved. They are under arrest. I will hand them over to you if you wish. Chen took the pad and reviewed it quickly. Councillor Vexus, Minister Threxus. Yes, we knew most of these names already. We have been watching your empire for 3 decades, Empress. We know everything. Then why this? Talindra asked. Why send one ship? Why give us 3 days? If you want vengeance, you could have simply destroyed us. Because we are not the Krell, Chen said quietly, and we are not the Valorian Empire. We do not kill the innocent to punish the guilty. We want justice, not genocide. She gestured at the holographic displays. Look, really look, Talindra studied the screens. She saw not just the Valorian Empire, but other governments throughout the sector. Data streams showed illegal trade, slavery, exploitation, warfare. Dozens of civilizations engaged in crimes similar to what the Valorian E-Captain Chen led Empress Talindra to a large chamber with transparent walls that looked out into space. The view was breathtaking. Stars stretched in every direction, and in the distance, Valoria Prime glowed like a blue jewel. Beautiful, is it not? Chen said. 20 billion people on that world. Most of them have never hurt anyone. They work, they raise families, they dream of better futures, just like my people did on New Terra. Talindra stood beside the human captain, feeling very small. Are you going to destroy it? That depends on you. Chen touched a control panel and a holographic display appeared between them. It showed star maps, trade routes, and data about various governments in the sector. For 30 years, humanity has been preparing, not just building warships, but gathering information. We have surveillance networks throughout known space. We know about the Valdran hegemony's slave trade. We know about the Korthan Confederacy's biological weapon experiments. We know about the Thesian League's exploitation of primitive worlds. Chen gestured at the Empire's territory on the map. And we know about the Valorian Empire's history of selling information to violent species for profit. We are not the only criminals. Then, Talindra said bitterly. No, but you are the first we have confronted. Do you know why? Talindra shook her head. Because of what happened to New Terra. Because 24 million of my people died due to your empire's greed, but also because we needed to send a message to everyone else. Chen's eyes were hard. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity will no longer be ignored, that we have the power to enforce justice, and that we are willing to use it. So this is about revenge. No, Chen said firmly. This is about accountability. There is a difference, Empress. Revenge would be destroying your capital world, killing your people the way mine were killed. But that would make us no better than you, no better than the Krell. She changed the display, showing images of the 19 other Reckoning-class ships. They floated in space at various locations, dark and deadly. These vessels are positioned near major governments throughout the sector. They are watching, waiting. If we give the command, they will act. But we have not given that command. Why not? Talindra asked. Because we wanted to see what you would do, how your empire would respond when faced with judgment. Would you fight to the end? Would you surrender? Would you try to hide your crimes? Chen looked at Talindra directly. Or would someone step forward and take responsibility? Talindra felt the weight of those words. You were testing us, testing everyone. The Valdran slavers shot at our ship immediately, and have been trying to negotiate with bribes. The Korthans claimed they had done nothing wrong and blamed their actions on previous governments. The Thesian... Chen smiled without humor. The Thesians asked to buy our weapons technology. What did you do to them? Nothing, yet. We are waiting to see how each government responds, giving them chances to make things right. Chen turned back to the view of Valoria Prime. You came to me, Empress. You brought evidence against your own council. You risked your life to talk. That matters. So you will spare us? That is not my decision alone, Chen said. She touched another control, and a new holographic image appeared. It showed thousands of faces, all human. These are the survivors of New Terra, People who were off-world when the Krell attacked. They lost family, friends, their entire home. They have been following the Indomitable's mission. They will vote on what happens next. Talindra stared at the faces. So many people, so much pain. They will want blood. They will want my empire destroyed. Perhaps. Or perhaps they will want something better. Chen gestured at the stars. Humanity learned something important from New Terra. We learned that relying on the goodwill of others is not enough. That the galaxy needs structure, rules, enforcement, not through conquest but through accountability. She changed the display again, showing a proposed framework. We want to establish a galactic council. A real one with actual authority. Representatives from every spacefaring species. An independent court to judge crimes against sentient life. And a peacekeeping force to enforce council decisions. You want to rule the galaxy, Talindra said. No, we want the galaxy to rule itself, but with oversight. With consequences for those who commit atrocities. Chen looked at her. Your empire can be part of that future, Empress. But only if you make real changes. What changes? Chen listed them on her fingers. First, every official who knew about or profited from the Krell deal must face justice. Public trials, not secret arrests. Second, the Valorian Empire must dissolve. Not through military conquest, but through transformation into a democratic federation. Your people deserve the right to choose their leaders, not inherit them. Third, full transparency. Open your archives, your communications, your government to independent inspection. That would destroy everything the Empire has built, Talindra protested. The Empire was built on crimes like the one that killed my family. Yes, it should be destroyed. But the people, the culture, the worlds themselves, those can survive. They can become something better. Talindra walked to the transparent wall and placed her hand against it. Below, her capital world turned slowly. She thought about the billions of people living their lives, unaware that their empress was negotiating for their survival. If I agree to these terms, she asked quietly, what happens to me? That depends. Do you plan to fight for power? Or are you willing to serve your people by stepping aside? Talindra laughed, but there was no humor in it. I never wanted to be empress. The crown was thrust upon me when my predecessor died. I have spent 40 years trying to rule justly, to repair the damage of previous administrations. But I never knew about this. Never knew that the foundation of my empire was built on mass murder. She turned to face Chen. If stepping aside saves my people, I will do it gladly. Chen studied her for a long moment. You mean that? I do. I will broadcast the truth to my people. I will hand over the guilty parties. I will dissolve the council and call for democratic elections. I will do whatever is necessary to prevent more death. Even though it will cost you everything. Even though. Talindra straightened her shoulders. My pride is not worth 20 billion lives. Do we have an agreement, Captain? Chen extended her hand in the human gesture of friendship. Talindra took it, feeling the strength in that small human hand. We have an agreement, Chen said. The Indomitable will hold position here for 1 week. During that time, you will make the necessary changes. If you succeed, we will recognize your new government and offer assistance in the transition. If you fail... She did not need to finish the sentence. I understand. May I return to my shuttle? Of course. But Empress, there is one more thing. Chen activated one final holographic display. It showed the faces of Chen's husband and children, smiling in a family portrait. Remember these faces. Remember why this happened, and make sure it never happens again. Talindra looked at the happy family that no longer existed. I will, Captain. I promise. The return journey to Valoria Prime took 3 hours. Talindra used that time to prepare her speech. When her shuttle docked at the Royal Station, she ignored her advisors and guards. She went directly to the main broadcast center and commandeered the equipment. Within minutes, her face appeared on every screen across the Valorian Empire. Citizens stopped what they were doing to listen. Council members watched from their cells. Admiral Kessex and his officers gathered around displays throughout the fleet. My people, Talindra began, I come to you with a burden of truth. 30 years ago, our government committed a terrible crime. She told them everything. About the Krell deal, about New Terra, about the 24 million humans who died because of Valorian greed. She named the guilty council members. She showed the evidence. She hid nothing. I cannot undo what was done, she continued, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. I cannot bring back the dead. but I can ensure that our empire never again profits from genocide. Effective immediately, I am dissolving the Valorian High Council. I am announcing free elections for a new democratic government, and I am stepping down from my position as Empress. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath. I have negotiated with Captain Chen of the human vessel Indomitable. She has agreed to spare our worlds if we make these changes, if we face our crimes honestly, if we transform from an empire into something better. Talindra looked directly into the camera. The choice is yours now, my people. Choose leaders who will serve you with honor. Build a government based on justice, not power. And remember the cost of forgetting that all sentient lives have value. She ended the transmission and sat back, exhausted. Within hours, the transformation began. Council members were brought to trial. Citizens organized voting systems. Democratic movements that had been suppressed for decades suddenly found their voice. It was messy. It was chaotic. But it was change. 5 years later, Captain Sarah Chen, now Admiral Chen, stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable. The ship patrolled the border between what had been the Valorian Empire and was now the Valorian Federation. Trade had resumed. Diplomatic relations had been established. Children from both species learned about the tragedy of New Terra in their history classes, ensuring that the lesson would not be forgotten.